GM. Good to see you, Bills. Hopefully, we're going to have a few people jumping in. I'll give it a few minutes. I was excited to see the number of RSVPs that hit up this one. Makes me feel like there's probably some interest in the topic, but we'll see. It's a fun experiment, anyways. I hope you're doing well, Bills. Love to hear from you, too, if you're able to pop up. A founder's journey is never complete without speaking to the founder of Abura, of course.
Oh, hey, Humpy, can you hear me? Oh, yeah, great. I'm here with Gloria, actually, and she wants to say hi.
Hey, humpty.
Wait, I'm so confused.
I know.
How are y'all connected? That's hilarious.
It's crazy. It's crazy
It's very
fate.
crazy.
It's really crazy fate. It's very, very unexpected.
Well, I
It's
love that,
crazy.
Gloria, you're kind of, in a way, on stage too, even though you're not under your account.
Yeah. I'm
Because
talking to Bill's phone.
yeah, so Gloria is right next to me. We bumped into each other at an event earlier, and then I mentioned to her that you're going to do this space, and then she said, "Oh, this person looks familiar." So that's why I requested to speak. I don't want to hijack your space, but
No, you're not. You're not at all.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So let's just set the stage here. I see like another person coming into the audience, so I'll make sure that we're at least setting the stage, and then we can just have fun. We can vibe here. It's meant to be as short, anyways. But today's experiment is trying to see if there's kind of like a story we can unpack in 30 minutes or less. And if so, I'll try to repeat this weekly. But really try to document the founder's journey. And I think on Farcaster specifically, that's a really great story to tell because I feel, and I could be wrong, that there are a lot of founders on this app. So with that said, we have Bills on stage, and who's the builder of Abura, who's also in Istanbul with someone I know. So I guess first of all, how do you all know each other? Like, do you know each other outside of a Farcaster? Did you meet through Farcaster? What's the story there?
no, we literally just bumped into each other like 1 hour ago at a event here in Istanbul. So like we didn't know each other before.
Yeah, we just shared a taxi ride back, and just got talking, and then we decided to get some dinner. And then Bill was like, "Yeah, he has this thing at 10," and I was like, "Oh, Humpty, I know Humpty." It's great.
And I mean, look, this goes to show one thing that I truly believe in. And one of the first startup founders that I work with hammered this in my head, and I use that word gently, not violently, was you always put out your best foot forward. You always make sure that you are not burning bridges because you never know when two people who you feel will never meet will meet. And a lot of times when you are out there just talking terribly about people, or it's just life, and you might something might slip, those people actually get to meet one another, and you've kind of burned a bridge there. So I just wanted to say that because I think that that's pretty wild. Jacob, by the way, if you want to come up, you're definitely welcome to. So I love, Bills, that you are out there advocating and just really pushing the product as you should. I guess seeing how you're the first person up here, I'd love to hear from you as a founder. What what are your lessons that you've learned going to these conferences, and what has been the I guess feedback and learnings from going to Istanbul, and promoting and advocating and being an ambassador for your own product as a founder.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say that I can't stay on the stage very long because initially we just want to say hi. But I'm happy to be able to talk to you and talk about sort of those topics around startups, around founders. Like for me personally, I love going to events. I love going to like founder meetups. And forecaster meetups are actually the best in that regard because no one is trying to sell you anything. Um, People are genuinely interested in what you're working on, and so that's why in every single crypto conference I always go to the forecaster meetup, and it's the most important item on my calendar. And then outside of that, well, I would love to go to sort of smaller events, which is where Gloria and I met. We met at a Grimpill event. It was a very small sort of local meetup of Gitcoin Grimpill. And we were able to connect and then talk about what we're working on, much deeper level. And it just feels so good to be able to have other founders with you along this journey because being a founder is very lonely, right? No one understands you, and you cannot talk about a lot of troubles with not even with your co-founders or people, other people at your team, because maybe they'll get worried. You definitely don't want to talk to your investor about this bad news. Then you really need those sort of therapy sessions with other founders. And anyway, the last thing I want to say is I really enjoyed your space last time, and it's really nice that you're continuing this series. So I'm very much looking forward to what you have to say in this episode. And I think after this, I'm going back to the audience. And it was very great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bills. Appreciate that. And definitely, I don't know if I have to put you down in the audience or you can put yourself down in the
Yeah,
audience.
I'll
I
do it
still haven't
myself.
had to do that. Okay, great. So I mean that's really great, and I think one of the things that, and it's interesting you're there with Gloria because her and I don't know how much she shared, but have worked together for years. And this isn't just limited to the work that we did together at Ontology and building Orange Protocol together last year. I'm talking about like 2 or 3 years, I believe, even before that, because I was a developer on the network that she was working at. And so we have a relationship both as friends, colleagues, and co-founders as well, right? Because we built together, a product and a mission and everything. So it really is interesting to kind of hear your perspective, both in terms of the founder's journey and it being a very lonely one. I 100% agree with you. I've been a founder of businesses both within Web3 and outside of Web3. And there, you definitely make a very good point there in terms of the, I guess, even though you have a co-founder, there's things that you may not even be able to share with a co-founder. And again, some of the things could be personal and some of the things could be, technical. But at the end of the day, I think that there's a certain individual gravity that everyone kind of brings to the stage that is the founders space. And there are different things that impact us, whether emotionally, physically, that the other person may not. And hopefully you found someone who balances you and isn't necessarily exactly the same as you, or else that also could be cause some issues, both for the business, but also to your relationship. And it's something that I found. In terms of the previous space that I hosted up here, that was really that was just me being me, right? Which is the only thing I know how to do is really just talk from a very authentic place. And so this is really what I'm experimenting with Abura. I've been hosting spaces, from very early on in Web3, talking about 6 years ago, hosting AMAs on YouTube and Telegram. First adopter of Clubhouse, which Farcaster definitely has those vibes to me. very early Clubhouse days, and of course, Twitter Spaces as well. And I think each of those platforms presents different opportunities for, basically sharing information, whether it's from an educational perspective, a marketing perspective, whatever you'd like to think. All of these different platforms present different opportunities, but it's a very public space. And because of the way that they're built, and maybe this is feedback for you as a founder of Abora, one of the things that I really enjoy about Abora, this is what I'm experimenting with here, is to try to create a much more intimate experience. So I'm thinking of Abora as a circle of friends that meet maybe in the park. We're sitting around, together, 4 or 5 of us, maybe more, but we're sitting around in a circle in the middle of Central Park, and the conversations you can have there are definitely very different from a conversation that you have if you're a public speaker at a cafe, if you're a public speaker at a conference. And I think each of these different size audiences impact the way that you can communicate. Whether it's a story you want to tell about yourself, a story you want to tell about your product, a story you want to tell about a community, a company, mission and vision, all that stuff, which I talked about last week. I think Abora allows you to do it in a way that's much more intimate, in a way that's much more nimble, in a way where experiments should be promoted. And so that's how I feel about Abora, and hopefully you feel the same. Obviously, scale is a big thing, but I think you can scale in different ways while still maintaining a level of intimacy. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Anyways, Jacob, how are you doing? Welcome to the stage. Tell me a little bit about Atlas. I see that on
Hey.
you have Atlas and Conversator on your profile.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to the stage, Humpty. This is my second time on Abora today. So I'm basically like this. I'm living on this stage.
You're in Abora Maxi now,
most-
then. If you've been here twice today.
I'm in Abora Maxi for sure. I did 3 last week, and that was intense, but they're always great. I love the experience of talking to awesome builders on Farcaster because it gets me amped up to be here and interested in building apps and tools and experiences on decentralized social. I don't want to take up a ton of time because I want to hear some more of your insights. I believe we also have an interview scheduled for sometime either later this month or maybe even in December. So I just figured it'd now be a cool chance to just chat in advance of that. But Atlas was this name that I came up with for a project like over a year ago, and I just thought that was a cool name for something that I could build on a Web3 protocol, like a decentralized social protocol, because I just liked the idea of an atlas as like a book of maps, and thinking that like essentially every client, every experience is going to be some kind of a map of the social graph in one way or another. Like each UI is going to kind of represent that. So that was the first thing I had to figure out, is like a name. and then not being an engineer, not being technical, I had to just meet and talk to a lot of people who could help me get from one step to the next. So as soon as I joined Farcaster, I was just immediately just talking to engineers and cool people that were already here and understood how to build. And so that was around March. And since then, a lot of the people have become good friends, people I speak to like on a regular basis. And it's been awesome to see the development from like just a kind of Twitter style client with fewer features to now this like really robust ecosystem of apps and tools and clients that all sort of serve a really specific purpose, and like little communities are building around each one. And like it's every single month it feels like it's just getting started, and also something awesome is happening. So it's been very cool to kind of watch that over the last 8 months or so. And now with Atlas specifically, I'm starting to learn Python and I'm starting to learn front end. I'm like taking lessons from other forecasters to start. So I don't need to like ask people to help me build things, but I can just kind of start building them. And I wrote the Python code with the help of Alex Payton earlier this week for like the first thing that I'm going to launch as kind of like a micro client. And it's hopefully we'll integrate with like the mod protocol. We talked to David Furlong earlier today. He's one of the first people I actually connected with on Forecaster. We had a Zoom chat a very long time ago. He's always awesome. So basically what I'm excited about, what I'm interested in is kind of like these micro experiences. I think like I'm not expecting to build the next like app that's going to be like super dominant in your daily life and on your homepage. Like I think Warpcast is awesome for people that want to, just be a part of the Forecaster community, and Warpcast is going to keep building awesome things. I really love these like very short user journeys that can be like already kind of tailored to you based on the fact that Forecaster already knows so much about you based on like what you write and who you talk to and what your interests are. So like most of what I build, there's not really going to be any buttons at all. Like it's going to already give you the experience. The second you start, the second you click a button to like open a page, the user journey is done. You're going to be shown something, and then that's over. And I want it to kind of be a cool kind of recurring thing, so it'll update over time. So just like this is like a sneak preview of one of the first ones that I'm going to be launching, which I'm kind of calling Reflections. So it's going to be like a part of the Atlas client at some point, but it basically currently right now just looks at your 10 most recent casts and then kind of like tells you something about yourself. So it's just like this little tiny insight about you based on like the last 10 things you wrote. And ideally, like you'll be able to share that to Farcaster or just download it to Telegram to like your own private chat using the Atlas bot. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about what I'm building as like a middleware layer between like Farcaster and like other apps you're using as just like a fun little user journey that I could take you on. And then over time, like I've got a lot of ideas, like I'm going to build like a lot of other types of micro user journeys and things like that.
That's rad, man. Well, you mentioned a few things here, and hopefully I want to touch on at least three things that you mentioned that I was like, oh, I gotta get back to. I gotta jump on that a bit. One of the things you mentioned was, this early stage startup founder, early stage startup experience. Um, I think when we think about startups, we talk about the 0 to 1 journey, but I actually think it starts at -1, right? I think that there's actually like a part of the journey that starts before you get to 0. And some of that is the things that you kind of described there. You have this idea, you try to validate this idea, you like reach out to your closest friends, maybe people on Farcaster, which actually I think is a quite unique, community because there's a lot of founders here, there's a lot of developers here, and for some people, I've heard that to be a detriment. Like, oh, like I wish there were like more degens and different types of conversations here. Personally, as someone who is looking for a community that has a strong founders kind of base, developer base, I found my tribe just literally coming into Farcaster. So I didn't really even need channels. I was like, oh, most of the people here, which I'm following, and that's who I want on my feed. Those are the founders. So I was able to connect with them, intimately, I would say. And again, that's why I talk about it being like Clubhouse in the early days, because you could have access to people that otherwise you wouldn't, because you just be, a needle in a haystack of people who are probably asking for help or to connect with them. But you can bring them on stage on Clubhouse, and suddenly you were having a conversation with a CEO of a very important company or a product lead of something that you use every day. So for me, that's Farcaster. And so, to go back to that, what I was saying earlier in terms of the -1 to 0 journey, I think that this is a good place to kind of validate ideas, bounce them around, improve on that idea, find people who you can co-build with. Because again, while I am technical, I wouldn't call myself a technical co-founder at all. because I don't know Solidity, which, that's, I think, probably at this point something that I should at least consider adding to my toolkit. Like I'm taking classes for data science and analytics because for at least the space that I plan to continue to build in, those are things that are super important to me to understand. So at least I am conversational in the things that I'm asking for. Um, the other thing you mentioned was, this, what was it that I think you just mentioned moments before about your own startup experience? I think you were talking about products. I'll get back to it. Anyways, those are some of the things I wanted to touch on, which I wonder for you as a founder, how you found that to play out, and is this your first kind of business that you're starting up, and or do you have experience, and are you bringing some of that experience into, the products that you're building now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, I was a lawyer for most of my career, and I briefly tried to do like a crypto like data company, which did not do well, unfortunately. And the lessons I learned there were pretty much like, I mean, there's a number of lessons that were learned over the course of like my experience in 2021 and 2022, but just like obviously the huge customer base drying up, it's very tough for a startup to grow at the pace it needs to grow in order to be viable. But like my main reason for kind of rethinking my approach to crypto over the course of the last couple of years in terms of the startup that I wanted to build, because it's not my full-time gig. Like I am an attorney still. I still work full-time as an attorney. Is that like I kind of wanted to go where the users are, right? Like in order to really build a startup in crypto, in Web3, whatever terms we want to use to describe like what's happening on chain, you have to kind of really understand like what are users doing? Like what are they doing? And like we talked earlier today to David about like what's the next thing that's going to go viral, or what's the next thing that's going to scale? Is it going to be minting? Is it going to be something more like financial on social? Is it going to be more gaming on social? Is it going to be more like just, organizations like DAO type stuff? And I think none of us really know. I think all these things are kind of happening simultaneously, and it's hard to see which horse is winning the race. But like what I thought was really fascinating looking at Farcaster and looking at like decentralized social protocols is that there's really nothing stopping imaginative ideas, right? Like DeFi over the course of the last 2 years has seen so many obstacles just in terms of like, you know, uh, regulations and financial compliance and hacks and security breaches and like rug pulls, and like there's so many things that are uh, barriers for a lot of people, in addition to like just wallet UX, which is still really confusing, and gas fees, which are still really confusing. And it was just really intuitive to me that like building like a identity and social layer on chain was like obvious that that would be cool, and that so much could be done there. That like the fact that Ethereum or Optimism underlies Farcaster as like the bedrock, and that all these apps can be built on top of it, or all these experiences can be built on top of it, just seemed to me like the sky was the limit. Whereas I think we're still kind of like trying to get out of the gate with DeFi in a lot of ways. And it's so dependent on capital allocation and partnerships, financial partnerships, but there's nothing slowing down decentralized social protocols right now besides the creativity and imagination of people building the apps and experiences. So it just seemed to me like if I wanted to be a founder that who, I'm planning for myself to stay excited and to stay motivated and to want to keep doing it, I kind of realized like I need to be building on decentralized social protocols. So I was interested in Lens when it first came out. Then I found out about Farcaster and like almost immediately made the switch in my mind. Like I'm not that interested in Lens anymore. I'm now a lot more interested in Farcaster. And it's hard to explain exactly why. I think it's really more a function of the people and the culture. And the fact, like you said, that like so many people here are very talented and bright and creative founders. So it's almost like anyone who's a founder in Farcaster is getting the benefit of like this, like the network effects of like other super intelligent, super creative people that are also motivated to show up to whatever client they're using and share their ideas and comment on your stuff and give you suggestions. So it's a really, really cool thing that's happening here. And kind of changed my whole perspective on like what a startup community should look like, because I didn't really have that when I was with my last project.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a point here that I guess a few points that are worth repeating and maybe diving into a little bit more. One of the things is, you were mentioning, trying to build and trying to understand what's the next thing that's going to go viral. If there's anything that I've learned in my own founder journey and startup building startups is always try to like solve a problem that personally affects you, because it's easier to like figure out how you're going to build that out, because if it's not solving your problem, it's not working at all, right? um Definitely virality is important, I think, as it pertains to being able to add or bootstrap customers, right, to the platform. But that's also one of the reasons why I really love Farcaster as a developer platform. um and why personally I'm more bullish on Farcaster as a protocol than Lens. And I have friends over there, tons of them, both at the organizational level, but also as developers. So this is nothing against them, obviously, but I personally think that the product ecosystem is much more mature around Farcaster. There's a lot of examples of different products that are being built on top of the protocol that leverage the social graph of Farcaster. And I think that's really it. Like trying to, when you're building a startup, you want to bootstrap customers to it. Like the faster you can get customers to test out that idea, the better it is for your product and your company, because you can start validating some of the things that you're doing and getting that feedback to improve it and get the ever elusive but important PMF, right, for early stage startups. So I just recently did a tweet, a post, where I said, if you are a early stage startup, founder, there is absolutely no reason why you should be building anywhere outside of, and I mentioned three different ecosystems. I mentioned Farcaster, I mentioned Optimism, and I mentioned Gitcoin. And the reason, and it's interestingly, there's Farcaster and Gitcoin are both leveraging the Optimism ecosystem now, in different ways. And the reason why I included Gitcoin there is I think them, like Optimism, have really validated, battle tested this idea of retroactive public goods funding, which I think has a lot of legs and still a lot of opportunity to scale. In fact, the company that I'm building and the product that we're building at Mosaic really aims to elevate that narrative of rewarding people who create value using data. Um, so yeah, Gitcoin, I think, has done a tremendous job at that. And in fact, I think that now that they've kind of broken up their own product ecosystem into different organizational units like Gitcoin Grant, or the Grant Stack, excuse me, Gitcoin Passport, I think they're going to do a lot better, because I think that there are going to be people that align with the different products that they're building and grow those teams and those products in a much more sustainable way. And Optimism, obviously, for everything that they've done, not just on the retroactive public goods funding space, but also, with the OpStack that now Gitcoin is also using for PGN, which is the public goods network. So, I think that this is a really interesting opportunity that we have as builders. I don't think that we're in the bull. I know a lot of people are talking about that. I still think we're in the bear and the builders market. That's where I love to live. So maybe I'm biased. I love bear markets because I could care less about speculation. I care about building valuable experiences with the technology, and I think that we've been doing a lot of that in the recent months. Um, and so, yeah, I think that those platforms protocols are definitely the future, at least in the immediate future, of where we're going to see a lot of development. Both with the technology, but also with some of the narratives that they've built. And anyone else in the audience, I see Hugo, I see Kusha, if y'all want to step up. Obviously, the stage is here for us as founders to share ideas, converse with one another, and debate if necessary. I don't see any requests, so we can keep going. Also, just to give everybody a heads up who came in late, the perspective, I guess if you wanted to capture what we're doing here in a few words, this is a social experiment. A founder's journey is a social experiment. This is the first one to talk about the founder's journey, both from my perspective, which I'm happy to expand on a little bit more, but also from the perspective of the founders in the Farcaster ecosystem, to just come up and, again, thinking of this as a group of friends who are sitting in a park, in a circle, talking to each other in a very intimate way, versus talking to an audience, right? Where there's like the sage on the stage, as they say, this person who knows everything and it's talking to everybody else. I absolutely do not like those formats of sharing ideas and debating and conversing. I prefer it to be more of a round circle style. Jacob, you were unmuting. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I wanted to say I agree with you that I tend to think that like building in this type of a market where there isn't like one dominant narrative is actually like a lot more enjoyable and productive than like, I mean, if you sort of like look at the crypto or Web3 ecosystem throughout most of late 2021 and 2022, especially with like NFTs being kind of like the main, uh, you know, primitive that everyone was rallying around. There was a lot of talk about like what the potential of NFTs were to become, and then like a lot of businesses or even DAOs, and like a lot of businesses trying to like figure out what is the viral thing now that is happening. And the reality is we have all of these services businesses and like development tool businesses that are well funded, that have great tools, that are actually putting this stuff to work. But what is more important is like, wait, but how are these things being used to create value or to create entertainment or more enjoyment, etc.? So it's so much better, I think, to be on the other side of that with like more tools, with more possibilities, and just like, yeah, like bounded only by your imagination. So I hope this actually lasts for longer. Like, I hope that like the kind of dominant narrative does not solidify for a very long time, and that it just sort of continues to become a kind of like experimentation, like plateau for, and because I think that helps the ecosystem just continue developing in a lot of directions versus in like a single direction.
Absolutely. I think that, to be fair, there's value in bull markets, because I think that there is a lot more liquidity in terms of funds for founders too. So there's still a limitation now for founders who are seeking funding. So some of these ideas that we're seeing being developed early are many times because of a founder's ability to save and using their own money to test these ideas. I mean, one of the more recent ones that I've seen is Bounty Caster, which I put a bounty up myself to kind of test it out, but also because I like supporting a lot of the Farcaster ecosystem products and community. So when I spoke to one of the founders there, she basically shared with me that this is all, I don't want to say just her, but definitely something that they're able to do because of her savings, right? She's putting this money into the product, into the business. And that's Linda, right? So I think that is, for me, something that I look forward to. I look forward to seeing capital being, more readily available for developers to be able to fund these ideas and share the risk, as they say, because really that's what that investment really is. It's you could go at it yourself, but there's two things you gain from that investment. One is you share the risk with someone else, and hopefully it's someone else who is values aligned, that they really care about the problem statement, they really care about the solution, they're able to support that team with not just with funding, though absolutely necessary, but also so that you can accelerate the growth, right? And you can actually get a team around this idea to build it out faster and validate ideas. So really moving much more quickly, and so it could be a valuable product in the ecosystem. Kusha, what's up? Welcome to the stage.
GM, I
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up? Go for it.
yeah, I came up to give like a quick disclaimer that I am by no means a founder. I'm an imposter, a complete total imposter. I am not here. I'm here to steal ideas and listen to founders talk about great ideas, and yeah. So it's good to be
Well, you're
here.
you're an
Like
honest thief. I like that. You're like, look, I'm here to steal your ideas.
this is the kind of thing I love your analogy. You were in a round circle sitting down as friends to talk, and I'm the friend that has no clue what you guys are talking about, so I'm just like there like nodding and like, yeah, I feel that, bro. Yeah, nice one, good one. So the one thing I do think I can add to is like, when you talk about how Abura makes spaces intimate, I feel like that's kind of dependent on the hosts. So these days I've been jumping into a lot more spaces frequently, doing a lot more talking because that's what I do. I think that's where I can say I kind of fill in the void. Is like, I'm a collector of stories and basically I talk to people. That's literally all I do. So I jump on spaces, and there are some of these spaces where you have hosts that are constantly trying to make it feel as small as possible, even when they have audiences of like 100 people. So it's something that happens these days, and I feel like that's where a lot of the energy is at right now. And I think you are very well aligned to kind of look for those kind of spaces, those kind of places, those more intimate connections. And you will do great, you'll do amazing. I love hearing you speak about your founder's journey. It's something, I thoroughly enjoyed. Last week's conversation was really amazing. And so I'll probably be supporting all the way through, even up to the point where we have like a super large audience, which is likely to come. So yeah.
Wait, are you telling me that there's first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you. Um, like I said, I only know one way of doing things, and that is starting with truth and honesty and speaking from the heart. That's my leadership style too. So I appreciate you having recognized that and sharing that kind comment. Were you saying that there are already spaces on Abura that have hundreds of people in them?
No, no, not yet. No, no,
Oh,
we're
okay.
not there yet.
I was like,
I
wow, I
think
didn't
we have.
realize Abora had reached that level of scale already.
I mean, we have the legendary Abura Maxi and the largest Abura host right now on this stage with us. So if anybody's going to have like 100 people before Abura takes off completely, it's probably going to be him, because he's one interviewing all the top founders, booking spaces every day, all day, it's his thing.
No, I love that.
I will
I think that. Oh, sorry.
just
Go ahead,
to
man.
qualify briefly. It's not I literally had the idea to do this like 2.5 weeks ago, and it's just like the fact that I think one day on Forecaster I said, "Hey, I created a space like Bill set me up. I think I want to do founder interviews because it seemed like that's where the liquidity was, right? Like that's where all of the energy was. I think like Humpty, like I think you recognize that too, and it just seemed like I could have done a million things. Like I'm interested in music. I want to do something with music. I could have done something with like law, but there probably wouldn't have been any interest in that. So it really was just like complete serendipity that I had suggested to do a founder series, and then like some of like my favorite people on Farcaster just volunteered right out the gate. So that was like total magic, you know.
And yeah, I agree with you. And so let me ask a question here, just so that we can, at least I could have some next steps, because this is a social experiment. Like I said, there is no plan. Like I would say last week, I actually took a day or two to write out an outline for the conversation. I don't know, maybe you heard in that conversation that there was a lot of thoughtfulness, both in terms of like the retrospective of my own life, um, that allowed me to find my why. But I wonder, because I don't want to replicate something that's already exists and is working. That's just not my style either. What are your thoughts in terms of like how I can, you know, leverage this space better? Like, is it, instead of telling or inviting other founders to come up here and speak, because it was never about like bringing one-on-ones. It's more like, let's keep the stage open. Let's just have a like a round circle where we're just chatting and we're talking about each other's founders journey, and just kind of discovering the conversation along the way. Or would y'all prefer to hear just about my personal stories? You know, my own founder journey, starting with like my first business, you know, before I was 18, through my latest venture that you know, I'm currently building with a friend. Or because this is something that I do pretty regularly too, is I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and read as much as I can. And a lot of that impacts the way that I think. It could be like a book club where I put out at the end of each of these calls each week the book that I'm going to be reading, the article that I'm going to be reading, and then invite everybody to take part in that, and then come and um, share what we've learned from that. There's a couple of ideas that I've had in my head how I could continue these spaces. Any thoughts?
Jacob, you want to go first?
Yeah, awesome. So I gotta hop. I'm actually getting into like a dead zone with cell phone service, but I love the idea of doing something that's like, you know, very much true to your insights. You know, I think that like I think like if it was just very much like this is something I want to talk about today, and this is like something I've learned about being a founder, and then like focus on like that specific insight and creating that round circle discussion around something super specific, I think that would be really awesome. Like, because trying to capture in every episode like your whole journey or like something super broad, I think could be really complicated and might be tough for everyone to participate in. But if it's like sort of focused on like a specific founder insight or a founder lesson, and then you can like weave in your specific story, and other people can respond and react to that in a way that's relevant to their story. So I think that could be a cool way to think about it. Like not necessarily like trying to tell the story of the journey every day, but like sharing a specific lesson or insight from the journey and make that the focus of every space, and sort of that can be done on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. And actually, so when I first scheduled this space, I was thinking about that. The one thing that I think that I need to do then, if that would be the way, and I'd love to hear from Kusha as well, but if that is the direction, just because this is the way that I operate, I probably need to outline the first 6 episodes in terms of what are some of those insights that I would want to discuss, and being very clear about the briefness of it, because I don't think that it needs an hour. I don't think most things need an hour, just like most phone calls and meetings don't need an hour. It could be like, hey, join me once a week, twice a week, to talk about these insights that I've learned along my own founder's journey. And then we can talk about it for like 30 minutes and then bounce and come back again the next time. But what do you think, Kusho?
Well, to be as plain as possible, two out of those three things you mentioned will probably make me slip off. I'll probably get bored to death. One being hearing you say the same journey like every single space. No, no. Like Joseph said, it makes a lot of sense, and a lot more sense, to be honest, when you do it as a group. So one thing I found to work a lot for more of the most recent spaces that are doing pretty well would be you have a host who has an agenda. Like, okay, this is the particular thing I want to talk about for the next 6 episodes. And then you have a more or less consistent set of people that come up. So that means even if it's one person or two people that you are sure for a fact will show up for those spaces, that's all that matters. Everybody else that comes and joins the space is the bonus. So that's one way I want to say how I think you should approach it. And luckily, you have people, you have fans. You have fans. That's me. I'm your fan, I guess. So you do have fans, and it would be a great place to start. Having that conversation where you share something and it's kind of like friends talking over stuff. That's kind of one of the most interesting conversations to listen to and to tune in, even from somebody listening from the outside listening in. So it's like, what are these guys talking about here? It's like one of those conversations where you see like a group of 6 guys talking very passionately about something, and even you who isn't like part of the group, you're like, that must be a really interesting conversation for them to be going at it this passionately. So yeah, I think that works, and I think you're pretty good at it already, because you already moderate in a sense. You already have a good way of controlling and directing the flow of the conversation. Then last thing I want to say is I don't think 30 minutes is enough. I mean 30 minutes. 30 minutes could go by in a flash. So before you even introduce yourselves, it's like 10 minutes. So I think an hour is good for you.
Wow, cool. I mean, and see, that's the lovely thing about hosting like an open, I guess, panel or an open stage, um, is that you get all these different perspectives. And so like right now we heard like two very different perspectives as to the direction of this. So I'm gonna try to find something that is authentic to my personal truth, which again, like I said, that's the only way that I know how to operate. But the one thing I know for sure is that I'm not going to stop showing up on Abura. I'm a big fan, and I think if anything, I'm going to make sure that it is um, also true to the statement I made earlier, which is I consider Abura, whether it's true or not, this is my personal belief, that it is a wonderful place to come together and have intimate conversations. And so I'm going to treat it as such, and I'm going to create something that allows me to validate ideas, connect with people, right? And really as a jumping off point for maybe other content development opportunities, because I am not just here. I host spaces on Twitter or X. I write under my media platform, which is Crypto Sapiens. So you go to cryptosapiens.xyz. That is a project that I started 2 years ago, actually, right after Clubhouse kind of became something different and Twitter bought it and Spaces launched, as a way of like capturing some of the stories of the people that I was meeting and connecting with. So it's got about 2 years worth of content there. And I'm also planning on like leveraging the Unlonely app to gamify some of the conversations that I have, on a regular basis. So there is a pretty large distribution strategy for the content that I create, and also to go beyond just the digital and do connect in the real world. Just as a bit of alpha, I might have shared this last week. I don't know, but I'm talking to a couple of friends who I am very close with, who are very involved with ETH Denver, and there is something that we're working on together to launch at ETH Denver. So there may be an IRL opportunity to basically take everything that we've talked about in all of these different spaces and bring them together so that we can all connect in the real world and continue those conversations there. So stay tuned for that. But I appreciate you all showing up today, and hopefully won't be the last time. We'll connect again in the future. I don't have anything else to add. Jacob, Kusho, any last words before we close the stage?
All super grateful. Thanks for putting this together. Like more than happy to jump on to these and hear more about your founder journey. We'll definitely get into it when we talk. I think in the coming weeks. But looking forward to kind of seeing what you put together because I do think I agree with Kusho. I think you're going to add a lot of value in the way that you're organizing people around these insights and truths, as you say.
Thank you. Yeah. I am looking forward to the chat with you too, because if there's one thing that I'm not good at, is speaking publicly about my own stories. Like I said, over 2 years, definitely 6 years in the Web3 space, have made a career of telling other people's stories, right? In fact, one of the things that I'm planning for East Denver really captures that idea without saying too much in a physical way. So to be able to connect with, Jacob on his space later, I think it's definitely going to be an opportunity for me to do that. Cool. And without anything else, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Like I said again, for popping in here, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers. Have a great week.